Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya, Ghana, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Mark Gunning. He is returning to the show to celebrate book number 4 in his I Told You So series. Before we invite Mark into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We also have a fantastic Pinterest page, which is called Reading With Your Kids. We want to connect with you out there so you can let us know what you think about the show. Let us know who you think we should have on the show. We also would love for you to connect with us because we are announcing book giveaways all the time, and we would love for you to join one of our book giveaways. We love giving away great books. We would also love for you to subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Joining us right now from Niagara Falls in Ontario, Canada. Our guest is returning to the show to celebrate book number 4 in his I Told You So series. Please welcome back to the show, Mark Gunning. Hey, Mark, what's up, my friend?
Oh, you know what, Jed? Since last time I saw you or talked to you, actually, I released 2 books, and I'll have to talk about the other one at some point. This is the new book that came out, and so I'm just looking really forward to speaking with you again, because it's been, I believe, over a year now, I believe, since last time.
Yeah, most likely. We've been, with the pandemic and everything, we had a little extra time in our hands, so we went, I think when you and I spoke last, I was publishing 4 episodes a week. We're up to 7 right now, and
oh, wow.
Yeah, we're just rolling right along. And you and the I Told You So series is rolling right along too. Why don't you remind us who we're going to meet in the series?
Okay, the series is based on 2 best friends. They're 10-year-old boys. I based it on myself and my best friend growing up as kids, and then I had to modernize it. So back when I was a kid, we had walkie-talkies, and we would go outside and yell, and we had a high-pitched signal that's how we could contact each other in the neighborhood. So what happened was I had to add texting and stuff like that and the internet. And so I've taken advantage of that. And so you'll meet William and Thomas. And William has all these awesome plans. And unfortunately, his plans probably aren't the greatest plans or the safest plans. And his best friend, Thomas, he's kind of the voice of reason. He kind of goes with William and just reassures and nothing's going to go wrong. And then William reassures him that nothing's going to go wrong. This plan is perfect. And then something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. And so, and then in each book, there's a collection of short stories, and each story is its own story. So it's not an actual, you don't have to read the whole book all at once. You can read each chapter along the way. I do find, though, people, once they start reading it, they can't put it down. They have to keep finding out what William's up to next.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. You said that the book was based on you and your best friend when you were 10 years old. I know which character I would have been. Which character were you? Were you the voice of reason or the fairly reckless friend?
I would love to say I was the reckless friend. But probably more the voice of reason, even though I did have some great ideas. I think when the 2 of us got together, it was like things happen. Mm-hmm. When we were on our own, everything was fine. Our parents were relaxed and calm. The neighborhood was calm. And then once we were together, that's when things kind of, that's when the shenanigans, if you want to say, happen.
Yeah. When you started saying shenanigans, I thought you were going to say something else, and I'm glad you didn't, because this is a family show. Something hitting the fan. This is great. Now, I'm imagining too that some of the way that you've updated this, you're a teacher. So you're working with kids around this age, as I recall. I'm sure some of those stories are influencing some of your storytelling.
Yeah, what I did is my books are to reach out to the reluctant readers, and so I know a lot of the boys, not just the boys, but some of the girls as well. I thought, what would get their attention? So as I started off, I think I mentioned this one time, the first time I was on your show, and I talked about the how more books need to be out there for kids just to get them into reading. And so my books are just for good old entertainment and to get kids into reading. And some people might say, your books are a little, some of the stunts they do, kids shouldn't do them. And I said, you know what? I do a little disclaimer. I tell the kids, anything you read in here, don't do it. They're just made up stories. It's all for fun. And it's to get kids to actually pick up a book and read. Mm-hmm. And I found the bonus thing is a lot of the parents I'll run into tell me that they love my stories and it reminded them of their childhood. Mm-hmm. And I have grandparents tell me that, your stories remind me when I was a kid, and they start telling me their stories. And I'm always listening to people because I'm always looking for new ideas for stories. And every time somebody will tell me something, it triggers just a little memory or something, and I jot it down and I add it to my collection of hopefully future stories that I'll be doing.
Yeah. You mentioned reluctant readers, and I'm so happy that, you're writing with that audience in mind. And it's so important because we're losing kids. We just had the president of Reading is Fundamental for Southern California, Alva Sachs, on the show, and she shared with me a really disturbing statistic that, and I forget the exact number, but it was more than half of the kids in fourth grade here in the States are not reading on level. And that just worsens, and the percentage of kids not reading at a fourth grade level in high school is incredible. Is that, are you folks in Canada experiencing something similar?
Yeah, we in my school board, we use BASS, and it's a reading program. So it's leveled reading. Mm-hmm. And so we've got a number of students, across the board. It's not just one school, it's a number of schools, and they are coming out below reading level where they should be. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, with the pandemic, I think it's really set us back. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking forward to getting in next week and getting the kids back into a routine, because I have a feeling probably not a lot of them have picked up a book during the 2 months off for summer. Mm-hmm. And so my goal is to get them into reading. And so I actually have a gift for them when they go back next week. I have books. I went out and bought a whole bunch of books. I got some zombie books, not by me, but some Cupcake Diary books. I know the girls like those, and can't remember the other series. I have a whole bunch of them, and I'm going to offer up the books to the kids, and I'll say, here's the deal. I want you to take it home. It's your book. You get to keep it. But I want you to come back each night and tell me a little bit about what you read each night. And so I'm hoping that the kids will buy into it and that I'll get some results when they come back. So that's just one thing I'm doing to get them reading. And I'm not actually, I just transferred schools. So I'm actually going to a brand new school. So the kids don't know me there. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to tell them that I'm an author. I'm going to let them figure it out on their own, because I'll probably leave a couple of my books around the classroom, but I won't say anything. And I'm going to see if a kid picks up a book and puts my name together with the book and says, hey, wait a minute. And so I'm going to see. It's interesting. I want to know how long it will take. before one of them says, I think I know you, or they've run into me before somewhere else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I have to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed to admit it, but it took me about a year and a half, and I wasn't the one who made the connection, but it took about a year and a half for me to make the connection between the fact that the Reading with Your Kids podcast is based in the Reedville neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. And that's just a neat coincidence, but it was completely over my head that we're here based in Reedville. So if it takes your kids a while, it's okay. They're youngs.
Okay. I'll forgive them.
Hey, while we have you here, you're working with reluctant readers, and you realize that, hey, it takes effort. We all sit back and we think, yeah, kids should read. Kids should love to read. And I loved reading growing up. But, when we were growing up, and we're talking to a wide, our audience has a wide age range. But when all of us were growing up, we didn't have as many distractions as kids have today. I mean, I had no distractions. I had to stoke the fire a little bit and feed the dinosaur. But, most of us had maybe a couple of channels on TV, and there were no channels that were devoted just to kids when they got home from school. And we didn't have laptops and video games and all these other distractions. First, tell me, as a teacher or as a parent, why you think it's so important, number one, that the kids are able to read on level, and then what can we do to battle the distractions that they're faced with every day?
Okay, Jed, that's a great question. So I think the big thing with that is getting the kids to be able to read and to actually enjoy it. And I find the ones that are struggling, I've asked them. I said, I know you don't like reading. Can you tell me why? And they say, I don't understand the words, or the words are too hard. And so I get frustrated, and then I put the book down, and then I try something else. And I encouraged them. I said, well, what if you picked a book that was a little easier, more your reading level? And so the big thing is trying to get kids to understand that reading is super important. They need to be able to do this. And I said, for example, what if you're playing a video game? Because kids play video games all the time. I said, what if your video game is one of those adventure games like Zelda or something, and you have to read a lot of stuff? I said, what if you can't read that? And the kids are like, well, sometimes I get my older brother or sister to help me. And I said, wouldn't it be amazing if you could do that on your own? And so I said, what you need to do is start looking for books that are, first of all, that are interesting for you or to you, and more so at your reading level. And that's when like I said, that's when I kind of will introduce my book and say, I have a book here. This is designed to kind of get the reluctant reader. And there are some challenging words in my books as well, but I know that reading, I tell the kids, you get off to high school and you need to do a lot of reading. And college, university, same thing. You will get swamped with the reading. And just because you have access to computers doesn't mean it's going to help you read. So you're going to have to want to read. And it's a struggle every year. Mm-hmm. Like I don't have a magic pill or magic solution for it. I wish I did, because every kid that came into my classroom, if they started at the beginning of the year, I hate reading, and by the time they walked out in June and are like, I love reading, and they read a book a day, I would be like, that's amazing. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of encouragement and telling them to try and pick the right books.
Yeah.
Back when I was a kid, some people say, what did you read? I don't know. You'll remember. Do you remember Richard Scarry?
Yes.
I read those all the time.
All right. Yeah.
Like that was my go-to book, right? There's Mr. Muggs,
mm-hmm.
and then I got Richard Scarry. And then eventually I jumped to Garfield, and I would sit and read the Garfield comics
mm-hmm.
all the time. And now I know a lot of the kids like the graphic novels now.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that's cool. And I was thinking of working with an artist to turn one of my books into a graphic novel in the future.
Very cool.
Just to see what happens.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, as you were answering my question, and of course, every time I ask a question, it's probably a bad habit of mine. It's probably what I did in school too. I would sometimes I start answering the question myself as someone's answering the question for me. But I was thinking, you know, we talk here on the show a lot about, you know, kids who are read to every day. When they enter kindergarten or first grade, they have already heard 800,000 more words than their peers who haven't been read to. And lots of kids who have been read to get into kindergarten. My son was reading when he arrived in kindergarten. And there are so many kids who are arriving at first grade who are already reading or reading at a very high level. Do you think the kids who don't get read to every day, don't have that advantage, they get to school and they have the ability to learn how to read, but they're looking around kind of like the kid who shows up at basketball camp and he's never played basketball before and he's in high school and now he's on the court with LeBron James and Michael Jordan and he says, well, I can't compete. I'm just going to sit down. I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, you know, that's a good analogy. I think what happens when the kids arrive and the parents have been reading with them at home, I think there is a big advantage to that. Mm-hmm. And so when they come to school, their confidence level is high. And I've been teaching grade 4 or 5 for most of my career. The last few years, I was teaching 3, 4. I dropped down, and I had some grade 3s coming in, and I was surprised at the books that they were actually pulling off the shelf and reading. And I would call them over and sort of say, okay, I noticed you're reading this. Can I ask you some questions? And they're like, sure. And I start asking them questions, and they're telling me all about it because I'm checking their comprehension. Because there's a difference between somebody that can actually read fluently. And I've had parents say, my son or daughter can read fluently. And I said, have you ever asked them questions about what they've just read? And the parents go, no, not really. I just know that they're really good at reading. And I said, sit down with them and ask them questions. And they'll come back and say, oh, my goodness, I didn't realize this, but I asked them questions and they couldn't really tell me what they had just read. Mm-hmm. And so the ones that are working with their parents every day, they're enjoying it. They're building up their confidence level, their fluency, their comprehension level is going up. So I can really tell when I see new students, and I'll be reading with the kids. The kids will be reading with me at school. So I'll be judging, finding out where they are in their reading levels. And it's quick. It's pretty quick. I can tell who has been reading a lot at home and who doesn't read. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah. Definitely reading helps with the parents.
So the parents and I know a lot of parents, when kids get to be 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, there's, and the kids are trying to break away and be cool. And Mom, I don't need you. And I can read on my own. It's still important for parents to be engaged and to ask those questions and to say, hey, tell me about this story. Oh, it's boring. No. Tell me about the story. I'm really interested. You're really important to me. I want to know what you love. I want to know what you like. And that's a great way for parents to stay involved with their kids' reading and really making sure that they're not only reading the words, but they're understanding what the words are telling them.
Yeah, definitely. I know with my books, I'll have some parents say, I was reading my book with my kids and I were reading the book together, but then I sort of sat down and said, okay, some of the things that William and Thomas do, that it was just a story and that you shouldn't do that. And I said, you know what, I'm glad that you actually sit down and have that conversation with your son or daughter. And I said that just shows that you're reading with your kids. You're interested in what they're doing. And I said that will make them a lifelong reader by getting them interested in the stuff. And I just feel that it's so important that we reach out to all these kids. And I do my best. I try every year. And there are some that I really struggle reaching out to and getting them to buy into reading.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I wish I had a cure for it, but I try and I try, and I'll keep on trying until I finish teaching. And then once I retire from teaching, I'm going to go off I'm hoping to do author visits, and I started going across Canada and hopefully into the States, and I will keep promoting reading, and it gets you everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have to ask, we talked about William and Thomas and their shenanigans. Anytime they get together, they're like two volatile chemicals and everybody in the town. Are we talking like shenanigans, like they go and they steal some coffee stirrers from Tim Hortons? Or are we talking about them throwing a kid over the falls? I just want to know the level of shenanigans.
Well, for example, that's a good question. For example, one of my first story in my new book is called Attack of the Drone. And so I know, because drones are so big, and I want to get a drone, and my wife's like, you're not getting a drone. So if anybody wants to send me a drone. But anyways, I was thinking one day, and we were in an assembly, and there was the guy came in for, it was funny, he came in for magazines, and they do this promotion and they show all these gifts, and if you sign up and you sell so many subscriptions, you get so many prizes from the pricing, and one of them was this little mini drone. And so as he was talking, I was thinking, I remember way back when I was my grade 7-8 teacher, he had a toupee, and one time apparently in one of the classes it fell off. And so I was sitting there and I'm thinking, what would William do with a drone? And then the story is he ends up buzzing the principal, and it catches his hair, and well, I guess you'll have to read the story to find out what happens. So that's one of the shenanigans that they get up to. Another one, he pranks his grandpa when they go on a fishing trip. And it's based on my cousins and I. Actually, my cousin used to do his grandpa all the time. His grandpa would be fishing, and he'd start to nod off. And as he would nod off, my cousin would tap his fishing line. And then he would jump up and yell, fish on, and he'd try to set the hook. And we would laugh, and then he'd reel it in and go, oh, nothing there. And he'd cast it back in. And my cousin would wait till he nodded off and tap the fishing line again. And so that's one of the stories. One of my favorites this one it's called the Night of the UFO. And what they do is they prank the neighbor next door by using a really high-powered flashlight with a UFO on a bed sheet going across between the trees. And so they trick the neighbor into thinking there's a UFO, and she calls the newspaper, and the reporters come, and then they see that, so they start pranking it, and then they kind of keep this going for a week or two, and then the news shows up, and anyways, they end up getting caught. But that's kind of the shenanigans. I love how you mentioned about the falls. The other night I was going to bed, and I had an idea. I was thinking about, what if I wrote a story about William and Thomas going over, trying to go over the falls in a barrel? But then I thought, okay, wait, this is a kid's book. So I've got an angle that I'm working on to make it kid friendly, and it'll be funny. That's all I can say. It'll likely be in book 5 or book 6. But that's kind of the shenanigans, like pranks and dirt bikes and broken bones and stuff like that.
All right.
So,
and the great thing, one of the great things about reading with our kids is, in addition to the bonding time and helping them read and helping them get confidence and understanding that they can do anything that they put their mind to do and work, it's also a great way to talk to our kids about values and how the kind of person we hope they grow into being. And a great way to talk about those values is by sharing stories and even laughing about stories about kids doing things that you probably don't want to do that yourself.
What I try to tell them is, they're like, one of the grandparents is like, you sound like you were a troublemaker when you were younger. And I said, well, you know what? I grew up on a farm, so I was more an adventurous kid. And so I do tell them a lot of my stunts and the things that I did. There was no evil to them or no bad intentions. My friend and I were just having fun. And so I point that out, that my stories are just to make people laugh and get kids reading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, like I said, it's good for grandparents or parents to sit down and say, okay, do you think what William did? Do you think you would do that? And then they can have a nice little conversation about why it was good or why it was funny or why maybe William should have done this instead.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Absolutely. Well, I know, Mark, people are going to want to know where they can go to learn more about I Told You So, books 1 through 4, including The Secret Book 3. So where can they find you online?
They can find me online on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, Facebook, YouTube. I started YouTube channel. I've got to start trying to get some stuff on there. Twitter, Instagram, you name it. You do a research on my name and you'll find all sorts of different ways of finding where my books are.
Yeah. And I'm guessing too that you have a website.
I have a website. It's called Itchygooney.com. And that's the name of my publishing company, Itchygooney. And when I was a kid, there was this little man-made island in Niagara Falls along the Parkway. And I know you've been to the falls, but you probably never traveled up the Parkway. If you ever come back, travel up there. And there's this little man-made island with a bridge. And we would hang out there. And apparently my neighbor, I think it was called Itchygooney, from that song by Gordon Lightfoot.
Uh-huh.
The record, the Edmund Fitzgerald. Uh-huh. And in there he talks about Itchygooney. But I thought she was saying Itchygooney. So I just said, you know what? I'm calling it Itchygooney. To me, that's what it was. And my friends know. If they hear that, they'll say, wasn't that little island that we used to hang out at?
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Don't ask me how to spell it. I'm just kidding.
We've had a great time talking to the author of the I Told You So series, Mark Gunning. Hey, Mark, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks, Jed. Anytime. I'd love to come back and see you again.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be storyteller extraordinaire, Noah Baum. She is joining us to celebrate how the birds became friends. That's the next episode of the podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, please do visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. We have a button at the top of the page that says Authors. Click here. Clicking on that button will let you know how you can be a guest on the podcast and tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book. It can also tell you about our Certified Great Read program. This is a program that has helped so many authors. If our panel of parents, educators, and kids believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. And with that status comes a number of really powerful tools that can help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. Do you know there are thousands of books published every single month? No exaggeration. That's true. It's tough. We can help. readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Mark Gunning. Please be sure to check out his I Told You So series. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Michael Murphy. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.